Harold Lloyd. Harold Lloyd rose from Midwestern obscurity to become one of the silent era's most inventive comedians. Known for his wire-rimmed glasses and ordinary man persona, he worked his way through early studio shorts before forming his own production unit. Behind the cheerful energy was a precise craftsman who choreographed elaborate physical gags. In August of 1919, a publicity stunt went wrong when what he thought was a prop bomb exploded, costing him his right thumb and index finger. For months, he feared the end of his career. Instead, he returned with characteristic resolve. A specially designed glove concealed his prosthetic digits so effectively that few ever noticed. Lloyd continued performing his signature stunts, climbing skyscrapers, hanging from ledges, and racing through crowded city streets. His best-known film, Safety Last, in 1923, features the famous clock tower scene that audiences assumed required two good hands. Off-screen, he collected photographs, raised a family, and became one of Hollywood's quiet millionaires. He died in 1971 and was interred at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Glendale, California. His grave lies near other early film pioneers, a fitting resting place for a man whose physical resilience helped define silent cinema's daring spirit. Montgomery Clift's screen presence blended vulnerability with intensity. Trained on the New York stage, he transitioned to film with Red River and The Search, earning immediate acclaim. In 1956, while filming Raintree County, he suffered a near-fatal car crash outside Elizabeth Taylor's home. The accident shattered his jaw and nose, leaving permanent facial changes and chronic pain. Reconstructive surgery restored function but not symmetry. Clift continued acting with determination, delivering acclaimed performances in The Misfits and Judgment at Nuremberg. Yet the trauma altered his confidence and health. He relied increasingly on medication and alcohol, a struggle well known to colleagues. Despite decline, he remained admired for emotional honesty on screen, influencing later generations of actors who valued realism over glamour. He died of a heart attack in July 1966 at his New York townhouse and was buried in the Quaker Cemetery in Brooklyn. His gravestone bears a simple inscription reflecting the modesty he preferred, a quiet memorial for a performer whose post-accident endurance reshaped American acting. Buster Keaton. Buster Keaton's deadpan expression hid one of film's most fearless physical performers. Born into a vaudeville family, he learned acrobatics as a child and carried that precision into silent comedy. His films of the 1920s, Sherlock Jr., The General, and Steamboat Bill Jr., pushed physical boundaries, relying on real stunts rather than camera tricks. Years of falls, collisions, and demanding routines left lasting injuries to his neck and back. After the transition to sound film, Keaton struggled with studio control and alcohol dependency, but gradually returned to character roles and television appearances. By the 1950s, he was recognized as a living link to silent cinema's artistry. Chronic pain followed him through later life, yet he continued performing live shows until shortly before his death in 1966. He was cremated and his ashes placed at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Hollywood Hills. Visitors still leave small tokens at the modest niche that honors a man whose precise control of movement came at the cost of lifelong physical strain. Jack Elam. Jack Elam built a memorable Hollywood career around a single striking feature, his misaligned left eye, the result of a childhood accident involving a pencil. Born in Arizona, he began as an accountant and film bookkeeper before turning to acting in the 1940s. His eye condition, though unintentional, gave him a menacing expression that became his trademark. Elam's off-kilter gaze made him the perfect Western villain, and he appeared in dozens of films such as High Noon and Rawhide. Over time, he transitioned into comedic roles, showing a self-aware humor about his appearance. Colleagues described him as genial and professional, often joking about the very trait that defined his on-screen identity. Away from the cameras, he lived quietly with his family and avoided the Hollywood spotlight. Elam died in 2003 in Oregon and was buried at Pacific View Memorial Park in Newport Beach, California. His resting place, modest and unadorned, reflects a man who turned an early injury into one of cinema's most distinctive faces, Bela Lugosi. Bela Lugosi's career embodied both triumph and tragedy. Born in Hungary, he rose to fame on stage and in the 1931 film Dracula, defining the role for generations. Beneath the commanding accent and theatrical style, Lugosi lived with chronic pain from World War I injuries and developed dependence on morphine prescribed for relief. The addiction, combined with typecasting, eroded his reputation in later years. By the 1950s, Lugosi appeared mostly in low-budget horror productions, his health visibly deteriorating. In his final years, he sought treatment and support from colleagues, including director Ed Wood, who gave him sympathetic work. Lugosi died in 1956 at his Los Angeles apartment from a heart attack. At his family's request, he was buried in his Dracula cape at Holy Cross Cemetery in Culver City, California. The sight of his dark attire in a quiet Catholic burial became symbolic of how performance and identity merged in his final image. Lionel Barrymore. Lionel Barrymore belonged to one of America's most respected theatrical families and became a key figure of early Hollywood drama. A successful actor, director, and composer, he was known for roles in Grand Hotel, A Free Soul, and It's a Wonderful Life. Severe arthritis confined him to a wheelchair by the early 1930s, but MGM valued his presence so deeply that sets and scripts were adapted to accommodate his condition. Barrymore continued to deliver authoritative performances, often portraying stern patriarchs or judges. Audiences rarely saw his disability as limiting; it became part of his screen gravitas. He also painted and composed music from his wheelchair, maintaining a busy creative life. Barrymore died in 1954 in Van Nuys, California, and was buried at Calvary Cemetery in East Los Angeles alongside other members of his family. His career demonstrated that physical limitation need not end artistic relevance, setting a quiet precedent for later generations of disabled performers. Walter Brennan. Walter Brennan, born in Massachusetts, became one of Hollywood's most recognizable character actors, known for his distinctive voice and folksy demeanor. Before film, he worked as a farmer and soldier, sustaining a leg injury during World War I that left him with a slight limp. Entering acting in the silent era, Brennan often played older men long before he reached their age, aided by his gravelly voice and weathered face. He achieved rare acclaim as a 3-time Academy Award winner for supporting roles in Come and Get It, Kentucky, and The Westerner. His limp and expressive gait became trademarks of authenticity in westerns and dramas alike. Off-screen, Brennan was private and devoted to his family, maintaining a ranch in California's San Fernando Valley. He died in 1974 and was buried at San Fernando Mission Cemetery in Mission Hills, California. His simple grave stands near other Hollywood veterans, marking the resting place of an actor whose physical imperfections only deepened his credibility on screen. Victor McLaglen. Victor McLaglen's life bridged military service, sport, and cinema. Born in England, he served in the British Army and boxed professionally before entering film. His imposing frame and rugged features, shaped by years of physical punishment in the ring, defined a screen persona of gruff loyalty and strength. McLaglen's collaboration with director John Ford produced enduring performances in The Informer and The Quiet Man, both emphasizing masculine endurance and moral struggle. Though not formally disabled, McLaglen carried lingering injuries and chronic pain from his athletic youth, which influenced his physicality on screen. Friends noted that he rarely complained, instead channeling his wear into performances that projected weary dignity. He died in 1959 in California and was buried at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Glendale. His grave lies in the same cemetery as many of his contemporaries, a reminder of the generation of actors whose real scars lent authenticity to Hollywood's golden age. Peter Lorre. Peter Lorre's unusual appearance and expressive eyes made him one of cinema's most distinctive performers. Born in Austria-Hungary, he began in German theater before achieving fame in Fritz Lang's Political Upheaval, forced him to flee Europe in the 1930s, and his haunted look became invaluable in Hollywood films such as The Maltese Falcon and Casablanca. Behind the camera, Lorre endured recurring health problems and dependence on pain medication that affected his weight and mood. His unique voice and weary demeanor drew sympathy as well as fascination. Despite these struggles, he remained productive across genres, shaping the archetype of the troubled outsider. Lorre died in 1964 of a stroke in Los Angeles. He was cremated and interred at Hollywood Forever Cemetery, his niche marked by modest lettering among fellow European émigrés. His life reflected both the cost and endurance of displacement, embodied in features that became inseparable from his art. Ernest Borgnine. Ernest Borgnine's distinctive features, broad face, gap-toothed grin, and flattened nose from Navy boxing, set him apart from Hollywood's conventional leading men. Born in Connecticut to Italian immigrants, he served a decade in the U.S. Navy before pursuing acting in his 30s. His rugged appearance, the result of multiple broken noses, became central to his versatility on screen. He could play hardened villains as easily as gentle everymen. Borgnine's breakthrough came with Marty in 1955, earning him an Academy Award for portraying a shy, kind-hearted butcher. Unlike many actors who softened their image, he embraced his unconventional looks as part of his appeal. In later years, he worked steadily in television, remaining admired for authenticity and humor. He died in 2012 at the age of 95 and was buried at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Hollywood Hills. His grave, simple yet dignified, honors a performer who proved that imperfection could embody humanity more truthfully than beauty ever could. Rondo Hatton. Rondo Hatton's screen image was inseparable from his medical condition. Born in Florida, he developed acromegaly, a rare disorder caused by excess growth hormone, which enlarged his facial bones and hands in adulthood. Originally a journalist, he was discovered by filmmakers who cast him as horror villains without need for makeup. His features, heavy brow, thickened jaw, and coarse skin, gave him tragic notoriety in films such as The Brute Man and House of Horrors. Though promoted as the monster without makeup, Hatton lived a quiet, private life, often uncomfortable with the exploitation surrounding his illness. His condition also affected his heart and lungs, leading to an early death in 1946 at age 51. He was buried at Woodlawn Cemetery in Tampa, Florida, under a modest stone shared with family. Long after, his name became a cult symbol in horror history, representing both the cruelty and fascination that defined Hollywood's treatment of physical difference. Michael Dunn. Michael Dunn, born Gary Neal Miller in Oklahoma, stood only 3 feet 10 inches tall due to spondyloepiphyseal dysplasia, a rare form of dwarfism. Gifted with intellect and wit, he earned degrees in philosophy and theater before turning to acting. Dunn gained fame in the 1960s television series The Wild Wild West, where his portrayal of the brilliant villain Dr. Miguelito Loveless earned critical acclaim and an Emmy nomination. Unlike earlier performers with dwarfism, Dunn fought for dignified roles that emphasized intelligence over novelty. He appeared in films such as Ship of Fools and No Way to Treat a Lady, winning respect across genres. Chronic health complications, including respiratory and joint problems, limited his mobility and lifespan. Dunn died in 1973 while working in London and was buried at Sunset Memorial Park in Norman, Oklahoma. His career helped open doors for future actors with disabilities, marking him as both artist and advocate in a changing industry. Marty Feldman. Marty Feldman's bulging eyes and angular face made him instantly recognizable, the result of Graves' disease and orbital surgery complications during youth. Born in London, he began as a comedy writer for British radio and television before stepping in front of the camera. His odd features, rather than hindering him, became central to his unique comic timing. By the early 1970s, he had achieved international fame through the Marty Feldman Comedy Machine and Mel Brooks's Young Frankenstein, where his portrayal of Igor turned physical difference into endearing absurdity. Despite success, Feldman's health declined under the strain of heavy workloads and smoking. Friends recalled his warmth and self-deprecating humor, never allowing illness to define him. In 1982, he died of a heart attack while filming Yellowbeard in Mexico City. He was buried at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Hollywood Hills. His stone bears a small comedy mask, a quiet tribute to a performer whose distinctive looks carried both laughter and resilience across 2 continents. Peter Falk. Peter Falk lost his right eye to cancer when he was 3 years old, replacing it with a glass prosthetic that became part of his unmistakable appearance. Raised in New York, he pursued acting after college and quickly gained attention for roles that balanced intelligence and humor. His defining role came as Lieutenant Columbo in the long-running television series Columbo, which debuted in 1968. The detective's rumpled coat, hesitant speech, and unassuming demeanor reflected Falk's gift for realism. His partial blindness never hindered his work. If anything, it added to the subtle intensity of his gaze. Off-screen, Falk painted, wrote memoirs, and advocated for creative independence in television production. He died in 2011 in Beverly Hills after a period of dementia and was interred at Westwood Village Memorial Park Cemetery. His understated grave sits near other Hollywood legends, marking a career that normalized disability within one of television's most beloved characters. Howard McNear. Howard McNear built a steady career in radio and television before becoming a household name as Floyd the Barber on The Andy Griffith Show. In 1963, a stroke left him partially paralyzed, limiting the use of his left side. Rather than replace him, the production team restructured scenes to allow McNear to remain seated or supported by props, preserving his warm presence in Mayberry's imaginary community. Though his health prevented long filming sessions, McNear continued working until further complications forced retirement. His colleagues, including Andy Griffith, frequently spoke of his professionalism and quiet humor despite frustration with his condition. McNear died in 1969 in California and was buried at Los Angeles National Cemetery, recognizing his earlier military service in World War II. His role endures as an example of creative adaptation and loyalty in mid-century television, where compassion behind the camera preserved one actor's dignity on screen. Annette Funicello. Annette Funicello began her career as one of Walt Disney's original Mouseketeers, quickly becoming America's symbol of youthful optimism. Born in California, she transitioned smoothly from television to a series of popular beach films in the 1960s, combining wholesome charm with mainstream appeal. In the late 1980s, she revealed she had been diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, a progressive neurological disease that gradually robbed her of balance and speech. Rather than conceal her condition, Funicello chose openness, founding the Annette Funicello Research Fund for Neurological Diseases to support medical studies. Her candor helped destigmatize chronic illness among public figures. She lived quietly in California through years of declining health, supported by family and fans who admired her strength. Funicello died in 2013 and was buried at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Hollywood Hills. Her memorial, simple and bright, reflects a performer whose final legacy extended beyond fame to advocacy and grace under suffering. James Arness. James Arness, towering at 6 feet 7 inches, became synonymous with the American frontier through his portrayal of Marshal Matt Dillon on Gunsmoke, a role he held for 2 decades. Born in Minnesota, he served in World War II and was severely wounded during the Anzio landings, leaving lasting leg pain that he managed throughout his career. His height and calm authority define the Western hero for a generation. Despite chronic discomfort, Arness performed many of his own stunts and maintained a rigorous shooting schedule. Off-screen, he preferred privacy, avoiding publicity and living quietly in Los Angeles. He died in 2011 at the age of 88 and was interred at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Glendale. His grave lies near fellow television pioneers, marking a life that merged wartime endurance with iconic American storytelling. His continued professionalism despite lasting injury exemplified Hollywood's quieter form of heroism. John Carradine. John Carradine's commanding voice and gaunt features made him a fixture of American stage and film for more than half a century. Born in New York, he began as a Shakespearean actor before moving into Hollywood character work during the 1930s. He appeared in more than 200 films, often cast as villains, preachers, or eccentrics. In later years, arthritis severely twisted his hands and other ailments limited mobility, but he continued working tirelessly in low-budget horror and television roles. Carradine's artistic devotion overshadowed discomfort. He was known to travel cross-country for stage appearances well into old age. He died in 1988 in Milan, Italy while touring, and was buried at sea off the California coast per his request. A cenotaph at Forest Lawn Hollywood Hills honors him beside family members, including sons David and Keith Carradine. His persistence through pain and age left an enduring symbol of theatrical endurance in American cinema. Ricardo Montalban. Ricardo Montalban's career spanned from Mexican cinema to Hollywood stardom, built on charisma and discipline that endured despite severe physical pain. Born in Mexico City, he rose to prominence in American films during the 1940s and 50s, later becoming a household name for roles in Fantasy Island and Star Trek II. The Wrath of Khan. A spinal injury sustained early in his career required multiple surgeries and caused chronic pain for the rest of his life. Rather than retreat, Montalban turned his struggle into advocacy. In 1970, he founded Nosotros, an organization dedicated to improving opportunities for Latino performers and those with disabilities in entertainment. His poise and controlled movement masked the pain he endured while filming. Montalban died in 2009 at his Los Angeles home and was buried at Holy Cross Cemetery in Culver City, California. His grave, understated beside his wife's, marks a performer remembered equally for dignity, perseverance, and quiet reform within Hollywood. Dick York. Dick York achieved national fame as Darren Stevens on the television series Bewitched, yet his career was defined as much by unseen pain as by comedy. Born in Indiana, he began acting in radio as a teenager and transitioned to film and television. During the 1950s, he suffered a severe back injury while filming They Came to Cordura, tearing muscles along his quad spine. The resulting chronic pain required strong medication and left him unable to stand for long periods. For several seasons, he continued filming Bewitched through careful camera blocking and supportive co-stars, but his health eventually forced him to leave the show in 1969. York later devoted his remaining years to charity work, focusing on housing for those in need. He died in 1992 of emphysema in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and was buried at Plainfield Cemetery nearby. His modest grave reflects a performer who lived and worked through invisible suffering, remembered for humor tempered by endurance.